Isn't these beautiful roses behind me just glorious? And they're just lovely. I always think of my grandmother when I see roses, and I just love roses, one of my favourite flowers, and especially with sweet pea and lobelia as well. And I just love roses, and especially yellow roses, and lavender, which my garden is full of lavender. And they remind me of my grandmother and my mother, and my aunt Sadie as well, and my aunt Julie, and my auntie Eth. She had a very special gift too. She was a great businesswoman, and my uncle was an artist, and maybe that's where I get my love of art from. And my uncle was very much into politics, my Uncle Brandon, so maybe that's where I also get my love of politics. But I'm a Derry woman, and all Northerners, we all love politics and what's going on in current affairs. And that brings me back to my topic of what we always talk about here on Confident Women Ireland is, what is confidence? And how do we become self-confident to live a more confident life? I keep saying it, and I'll never change at the start of it. Everything that we begin with begins with the mindset. Self-confidence and confidence begins with the mindset. It starts with our thought process, and it starts right down to the language we are using in our self-talk. And when I say the language, many people might call it the vocabulary that we're using in our self-talk and in the tone of our voice in which we speak to ourselves. And that's, for me, from my perspective, one of the most powerful ingredients that we have to have self-confidence. Why do we think the way we do? Why do we use the words and the language to even describe ourselves or describe the world that we live in? What is our perception of the world that we live in? Do we live in a friendly world, or do we live in a hostile world? Well, you know what? Everybody has different life experiences. Not all of them are good, and not all of them are bad either. We have to make the best of life, of what we can in any given situations. Let's talk for the ordinary people here. Let's not just talk about everybody in life, because if we went into that, we'd be here for days and hours and weeks. So let's talk about, how can we get that moment? When you think about this rose bush didn't plant by itself. It started off with maybe a clipping. I don't know very much about gardening, but I do know from my friends and family that what you do is you take a snipping of this, and then the roots grow. They have to be in the right temperature of the right water, so that's fine. But my other favourite flower, the sweet pea, they all begin with planting a seed, and every thought that we have all begins with a seed. So if you think about a thought, what thought planted that seed? And what nutrients does that seed need to grow? So if you think about the water, if you think about every day it needs watering. Some might need watering every day, especially in this weather, which we're having glorious weather in Ireland. Long may it continue. And so they need a certain soil. Not all plants or bushes or even lavender, they all don't need the same watering, and they don't all not all soil suits the seeds or the plants of different plants. That's something that I learned, and because I love flowers, and I love a nice garden, but I'm not a great gardener. I never was, but I love flowers. And so I use that analogy with my thoughts. What seeds do I have to plant in my mindset toolbox to empower me and enable me to have self-confidence, to live a confident life? As I've said many times before, confidence is been the ability to do something within a skill set. So you have confidence because you have that repetition. But self-confidence all comes down to the mindset and the perception of the world that we live in. And that all comes down to either life experiences. But there again, we all have crap life experiences. But again, it's about how we use the thoughts in our mind, the language and the vocabulary we have in our mindset toolbox, where we can change situations and change perceptions of the world that we're living in. So I'm going to invite you today to actually just take 5 minutes today and listen and reflect. What words did you use, and what in your vocabulary, in your spoken words, in your self-talk, and in your spoken words today? Did they work for you? Did they empower you? Did they make you have a lovely day? Did they make you feel good? Did the thoughts put you into action? Because remember, every thought we have has a chemical reaction. Every thought, every word has a chemical reaction. And so does our tone of voice has a chemical reaction. And everywhere then in our body feels that chemical reaction. And it's like, everywhere goes down our body. I sometimes feel it in my shoulders and in my stomach. And that's where I get my chemical reaction to the thoughts in my self-talk and my internal dialogue, which then affects the tone of my voice, because my body senses and feels the words and the language I use in my vocabulary, in my self-talk, and therefore my body has an instant reaction, and therefore my tone of voice. And also the words that we use will automatically tell our tone of voice how to sound. And so if you think then about on my YouTube channel, if you then go to Elaine G. Rogers, where we talk about frequency, every thought that we have has a frequency. So if we think about that, every thought that we have is a frequency. And if, I'm just thinking about this now, if every thought that we have has a frequency, what sound does that sound like? How does that sound? And I'm just thinking now, if every thought that we have has a frequency, does that reflect in our tone of voice? So remember, every thought and every word that you have in your vocabulary that you use and speak in your self-talk has a frequency and has a chemical reaction in your body. And therefore determines your emotions and your behavior, actions and outcomes. Today, make a decision. Make that choice to make your language and the words that you use in the vocabulary of your self-talk and spoken words, make them at a high vibration for you today. And remember, with every thought, put it into an action, because that is what's going to give you the outcomes in your life today. And it's all little stepping stones, little pebbles for the outcome that you want for the rest of your life. And look at this flower. Aren't they just beautiful? Aren't they just beautiful? My grandmother named me. She used to pray to the St. Teresa the Little Flower, and so she named me Roisin Teresa after the St. Teresa Little Flower. And yeah, so maybe I get my love of flowers. And the last thing she said to me before she died was, she said, Roisin, I prayed for you from the day you were born, every single night before I went to bed. She always went to bed. She used to listen to the last Radio Foil broadcast every night, and that was when she was in bed. She would listen to that and she would turn it off. Then she would say her prayers. And she said, I will always send you flowers when you call me or when you need me. And before I went on my little retreat this weekend, my grandmother sent me her little message and her calling card, and I was gifted with yellow roses before I went. So you know what, as Pauline Johnson says from Angelwood, who I also spoke to on the YouTube channel, we are not alone and we are loved. And if you're feeling down today, change your thoughts to change your life, as Dr. Wayne Dyer says. And, remember, you're not alone. You are loved. And if we listen and quieten our minds, we'll always hear the messages, the little calling cards. Not everything comes in feathers. Sometimes it just comes in a smile, or a word, or something that somebody might say. And they're just or even a little animal. A couple of weeks ago, I had 2 birds coming in, and 2 little blackbirds. And I mean, they actually came into the porch one night because I wasn't listening to them. And I don't know what they were saying, but I just said, who are you? Because you must be from above. And I really do believe that our loved ones are always close by. Remember, you are not alone and you are loved.